Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar about how to achieve a permanent DSO of 15 days. My name's Mark Price and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. So our panelist for today is Corcentric's VP for EMEA North, Jonathan Blackburn. So welcome Jonathan, I'll let you take things from here.
Thanks Mark and good morning everybody. Thanks for joining us today. As Mark says, I'm Jonathan Blackburn, I'm the Vice President of Sales for Northern EMEA, Corcentric. And as Mark said, today's webinar is entitled How to Achieve a Permanent DSO of 15 Days. Now, as we all know, typically DSO is affected by things like short-term fluctuations in sales or collections. And I think we've all felt some impact from Brexit, the pandemic, and just various supply issues over the past year or so. And also, unfortunately, in the wake of Omicron and the terrible events happening in Eastern Europe, it looks like things will remain just as uncertain for the foreseeable future. So my job today is to illustrate an idea on how DSO can be reduced and fixed at 15 days permanently. The goal of this is to fundamentally bring some certainty to these unfortunate, uncertain times we find ourselves in. And as Mark said, if you've got any questions on the way through, please use the chat box and I'll answer them at the end, time allowing. But first, to get started, what I'll do is I'll start by providing some context on Corcentric. So Corcentric was started in the US in the mid-90s. It was originally founded as a group purchasing organization for the automotive industry. And it was unique at that time in that the service was underpinned by technology, which wasn't a common thing at the time. And the aim was to help companies reduce the cost of doing business so they could invest in sustainable growth. And that growth was further supported through enabling clients to focus their resources on what they did best, their core business. And that aim and that focus on technology is still core to what we do today. It's part of our DNA. We provide a global solution supported by 550 employees around the world, 15 offices. The UK office is based there in London. I'm located there just a little north of London in the cultural metropolis of Rossendale. We're connecting 2.25 million businesses on behalf of our 2,500 clients. And these clients entrust 20 million transactions a year to our services, which total just north of $105 billion in associated value, which is growing quite rapidly. Just taking a quick look at who we do business with. The clients you can see here cover a wide range of industry sectors. There's no particular vertical market where we're more prevalent or indeed suited. And I think that's probably because of the universal nature of the functions and challenges within finance. Having said that, the broad range and variety within the client base does mean we're experienced in accommodating any specific nuance or challenge a business might have. These are, of course, the logos that are brand recognition, but we work with all business types and sizes structured in a vast variety of ways. For instance, ITV is a UK-only business, whereas Unisys is global. VF, the company behind brands like North Face and Timberland, operate a shared service centre, which consolidates functions for the business units across Europe, and we dovetail into that and support those different units. We're also used to working with systems from legacy ERP through to the modern cloud ERPs, which can be consolidated, disparate across various sites, and we're more than experienced in working with simple and as well as complex organizational structures. We highlighted Daimler in the original email invite, and they had an average DSO of 37 days, which were reduced and fixed at 15. Their revenue is about, I think, $48 billion per annum, but we can achieve the same output, the same results with companies larger or indeed smaller than that. And I think the key message is there that size isn't an issue. And it's worthwhile noting that the average DSO in Europe currently stands at 98 days. So I think it's fairly simple to understand how reducing that 98 days down to say 15 days can have a really positive impact on the bottom line. So what do we do? What are we about? Well, Corcentric has a broad range of solutions, and what we're really focused on is helping clients purchase, pay, and get paid. And there's three components to that offering. The first of which is technology, and that underpins everything we do. And within technology, there's three pillars. The first one is source to pay. We've got solutions in procurement and sourcing, and these cover things like supplier and contract management through to automated accounts payable, PL matching, helping to manage the overall accounts payable side of the house. And on the flip side, of course, we've got order to cash, and we've got solutions related to the management of accounts receivable process, such as electronic invoice presentment and collections, and as well as the managed AR product itself. And the third pillar, which sits in the middle and ties everything together, is payments. The second component of our service is advisory. We've got a team of specialist business analysts that can evaluate client financial data and benchmark it against our aggregated client experience and also financial trends across industry. Now, this is important because it's essential to understand what technology should be deployed, where, when, and how. And the goal of our business analytical team, advisory team, is to make the invisible visible in order that the application is appropriate. And finally, we provide finance. That's funding to help with working capital management. Now, that could be extending days payable outstanding, or as we're talking about today, reducing and fixing days sales outstanding. And both of these activities are centered on finding money locked in the cash conversion cycle, bringing it to the bottom line so that working capital can be unlocked. So, in summary, Corcentric is a blend of technology, people, and finance, which delivers a unique, unfair advantage for our clients. So, let's take a look at the actual managed AR solution itself. So, this is what Daimler used to guarantee the business outcomes, i.e. the fixed DSO at 15 days. And I think whenever you're outsourcing a business process or you're bringing in an external solutions provider, you're putting something between you, the supplier, and your customer, the buyer. And typically, that's a mix of people, process, and technology. But in order for us to be able to guarantee a result, we have to add something else, and that's funding. And that unique mix of BPO, finance, underwrites the results. Okay. The first of which is an immediate reduction in DSO. So every invoice is paid by Corcentric. That means this is a full ledger solution. It's not invoice or customer specific. We'll fund 100% of the ledger. Of course, it can be applied to sub-ledgers too. Things, maybe ledgers based on product, territory, or some other kind of segmentation, such as value. And that's often how a client first engages with us with a segmented POC. We also pay to DSO to terms, or indeed faster. We've spoken that DSO fixed at 15 days, but we have clients where we fix the DSO at, say, the terms of their invoices, 30, 45 days, whatever suits the client. The service also totally de-risks the collection process because we provide a non-recourse service. We take on the full ledger, good, bad, and indifferent. It's a full partnership, and that means no more late payments, no more bad debts, no more write-offs. And our team is typically used to strategically augment rather than replace your own team, allowing for the existing internal FTE resource to be deployed in a focused way. You can also support your own growth without the need for recruitment as we can scale to suit. And because we're paying the client, the cash application process becomes streamlined into a single consolidated payment and remittance. We can provide the payment in any detail that's needed. It'll be in a system-friendly format to support automatic ingestion into your core systems. We also provide this as a business model as a service. That means there's no capital outlay or investment in technology. There's no infrastructure, no new systems required. It also means that the service continually evolves with the market and requirements, and it's our business and our responsibility to develop the technology in line with client requirements. And lastly, we provide a best-in-class customer experience for our customers and their buyers. It's very, very much a white glove partnership that reflects how you would want your clients to be treated, reflects your own credit policy. Now, all of these benefits can be classified in one of two ways. There are those that are measurable, where we can calculate a cash figure for the value of the benefit, but there's also those where we can't. And it's not to say they don't have a value in real terms, it's just there isn't a simple, easy metric that we can use to apply a value to it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at both of those. I'm going to look at the measurable value and the value that's not so easy to measure. I'm going to start with the measurable value because these elements form the basis of the MAR business case, the Managed Accounts Receivable business case, and eventually the proposal. So there's 8 benefits we can measure. The first is working capital. And obviously, a higher DSO means more capital stuck in the cash conversion cycle, and conversely, lowering the DSO puts cash back on the balance sheet, and we can calculate what that is. The next thing we look at is the comparative costs of borrowing those funds. That's based on a company's weighted average cost of capital, which is it's the metric, the established metric we use to establish that figure. Thirdly, there's the cost of insuring and receiving using a credit guarantee to protect against non-paying clients. Again, there's an established industry-wide rate that we can drop into this. And the last measurable benefit on the slide is bad debt. There's obviously a cost to customer defaults and then the debt recovery action, and we can calculate that based on your historical write-offs and our industry knowledge as well. So continuing with the measurable benefits, there's also a cost to process and allocate payments that come into your business. AP automation is part of a broader Corcentric services, and we see a lot of examples of labor-intensive processes to open correspondence, scan checks, key data, upload data to systems, etc. So we know what the cost of that's going to be. The next is FTE cost. Staffing expense might be about redeploying resource or even sustaining growth without adding resource. Either way, there's quantifiable costs that we can add in there. Next is the cost to produce and send an invoice via multiple channels. That includes monitoring the delivery success, sending copies, and so forth. And this includes integration with third-party e-invoice companies, which are more, increasingly appointed by customers to digitize their AP appointments, AP process. Sorry. So what I'm talking about is automatic upload of invoices and supporting data to AP portals. And lastly, we can calculate the revenue impact on EBITDA through growth. Now, this is growth supported by new customer acquisition, retention, increased sales through reduced discrepancies and disputes. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is look at a real-world example of what this actually looks like. And what you see here is a sample managed AR business case. And this example uses genuine client data to reflect a real, actual financial situation. Now, the client that we're using here has given us permission to share the data as long as we don't protect their identity. Now, it's obviously not Daimler because their revenue is somewhere in the region of 48 billion. So the results that you would see here would be staggering. But for this example here, I've used a mid-sized business with sales in the managed ledger of 100 million PA. That's largely to make it an easy round figure to make the figures easy to understand. This client's DSO averaged 57 days, and we accelerated and fixed that to 15 days. So we reduced it by 42 days. And you can see there that immediately unlocked working capital from the receivables float of £11.5 million. But it also, you can see that the cash value for the other elements in this, which we just go through them there, with bad debt, 480k, credit guarantee, 100k, DSO acceleration, 800k, payments processing, 159k, full-time employee value, 298k, invoice presentment saving of 108k, and revenue growth 273k. So as you can see there, the bottom line benefit that this solution delivered for this client with these particular metrics was just shy of £14 million. Now, this slide typically generates two questions. The first one is, how's this figure calculated? And the second is, what does it cost? So let's dig down into some of the detail. So as I said, this illustration is based on real client data, and these are the metrics that sit behind these figures. Obviously, every situation is different, and that's where the advisory part of the service comes in. So unlike advisory, which is often sold by consultancy firms as a separate service, we actually typically deploy the majority of advisory into the part of the process where we're building that business case. So there's a lot of value that can be gained there free of charge, essentially. So our business analysts work with your data in order to create a business case specific to your own situation based on your own metrics. So for instance, perhaps you don't use credit insurance, so that's no problem. That can be accurately reflected in the figures. And that business case will include our pricing, so you've got a full visible ROI. So this is the cost in order for us to guarantee this result. And pricing is calculated on multiple factors. Now, of course, the sliders and variables that can be adjusted in collaboration with yourselves to create the right result where everybody has a win-win. So we've looked at the measurable value. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to talk about the value that maybe isn't quite so easy to put a cash figure on. As I said, there's still value here, a lot of value, but it's just maybe a little bit harder to work out in a presentation. So interestingly, these value points also tend to reflect the personal challenges that clients feel in their their day-to-day roles. So, for instance, how do you value better cash flow forecasting? That can cover a number of different things. You know, what does it mean to be able to report back to the board? This is the cash flow. We know what it's going to be. Also, what does it mean for a credit director to be able to go back to the CFO and say, I know what the DSO is going to be this month. It's accurate. You know, what does it mean to be able to understand your IT burden? You know, reducing that IT burden. How do you put a value on on-demand scalability that doesn't include recruitment and HR costs? What systems would you need to deploy if you were integrated into e-invoice platforms? In a similar vein, can you calculate the legal or onboarding costs or the value of providing flexible payment terms? So these are all additional values that the program brings. They're just a little bit more difficult to put an accurate metric on. And I think this brings me back around to where we started. So hopefully I've shown that DSO can be reduced and fixed and the impact that that could have on your business. So my question to you is, if you could reduce and permanently fix your DSO at 15 days and liberate £13.7 million worth of cash, would that provide some certainty in these uncertain times? So thank you for your time. I'm happy to field a few questions now if they've come through.
Yeah, hi John. We've had a couple come on the way through.
Okay.
So the first one is, how is this different to invoice finance?
Well, very good question. It's a very common question. People often equate what we do with something like factoring, but there's two fundamental differences. The first is this is a full ledger solution, so we manage accounts receivable for all accounts and all invoices rather than disqualify certain accounts or cherry pick the easy ones or only fund a certain part of the ledger. So it's a full partnership where we support you as if you were dealing with the clients yourself. And secondly, you know, on that point, this is a white gloved service. You know, we take an approach to each customer service and interaction with your customer designed to enhance the business relationship. So it's unlike invoice factoring, where commonly when the money's due, and there's a concerted effort there to collect the money on the date. We take a little bit more of an approach where we want to support you and your clients to grow the business, because we fundamentally benefit from that. I hope that answers that question.
Thanks. Yep, second one. Does it work for customers spread across different countries where different languages are used?
Yes, it does, absolutely. Now, this is a common question, and it tends to be raised because, as we understand, it's not just a case of being able to speak the language. You also need to understand the business culture and landscape in different countries and regions. And be happy to have a chat about that in more detail if we get some details, contact details.
Thanks.
Are there any others?
Yeah, I've got a couple more. I have a high volume of customers, each with a relatively low value of sales. Can it work in this situation?
Okay, I need to understand a little bit more, but I think what it sounds like is you've got large volume of clients that are producing a low amount of revenue. Now, we need to understand a little more, but we've got clients that operate in many different ways, and we're probably encountering that specific challenge that you're experiencing right now. Also, I think it's important, it's a good point to say that we also recognize there's an element of inheriting the problem child with this. We're not looking to cherry pick. So I think that, I think if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, but we'd be delighted to have a chat on this if they dig down a little bit further. I'm sure it's something that we can provide.
And just one last one.
Yep.
It says, you showed some large clients, but does this work for small businesses too?
Yes, it does, absolutely. It's all based on the relative merits of the client. I think the sensible approach to take is to have a chat. We can walk through the process, the engagement process, the things we need to find out, and we can build a business case specific to your particular requirements. So yeah, we work with clients of all sizes, shapes, and complexity. Any more, Lee?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I think, Mark, it's the right time to hand back over to you.
Great, yeah. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks so much for the presentation, and thanks, Lee, for the questions, posing those to Jonathan. And thank you to all our attendees for joining us today. If we were unable to answer anyone's questions during the Q&A, then we'll reach out to you individually with a response in the next few days. And everyone will receive a recording of the presentation from today's webinar shortly, early next week, I would expect. So have a great day, and thanks again for joining us all.